Welcome to Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty Leadership Interview Series. I'm your host, Dov Barron, founder of Full Monty Leadership. If you are a new listener, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in because we're about to go Full Monty. If you're one of our regular listeners, a big thank you to you because you're one of the people who've made it possible for us to have over 1.5 million downloads. And you are part of how we've become #1 podcast for Fortune 500 listeners. We're topping human resources, business, family business, next generation leadership, and a whole bunch of other subjects. So again, thank you for being part of that. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. And remember, as always, keep us relevant. And the way we do that is for you to go to iTunes, rate, review, and leave your comments on the show. We really appreciate it. Subscribe to that show. As always, on these, we have a special guest. And actually, on this one, it's a little bit different because we have a returning guest. We don't do those very often, but we have a returning guest, Captain Babyface himself. My special guest this time is Dave Crenshaw. And just to remind you, those of you who don't know, Dave Crenshaw is a master at helping people conquer chaos. In fact, you'll see behind him there it says Focus Business. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. He's a master at conquering chaos. He has appeared in Time Magazine, USA Today, the Washington Post. He's even been on the world-famous BBC, the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation. His first book, The Myth of Multitasking, How Doing It All Gets Nothing Done, has been published in 6 languages and is a time management bestseller. One of the reasons that this is so amazing is Dave Crenshaw himself was diagnosed with off-the-charts ADD. And he twitches in the corner, but we pulled him out for this interview. His enlightening courses on websites such as lynda.com have been viewed by hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. So let's welcome the man who regularly sips from the fountain of youth, best-selling author, speaker, business coach, Dave Crenshaw. Welcome, mate. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much, Dov. Always glad to be back.
Yeah, it's good. It's been a while, but not that long. The last time you were here was promoting that book that is on your left, our right, which is Focused Business and the Agents of Chaos.
Yes.
That was a fun thing to talk about. And you see, viewers, you see in the background there, The Myth of Multitasking, Dave's other book. That's when I met you, when you'd just written that book. So that's like 5-6 years ago, right?
Yeah, gosh, pushing 7 now.
Whoa.
But yeah.
Whoa.
Well, the book came out 7, but I think, you and I met about 5-6 years ago. Yeah, so that's right. You're right.
Wow, and you don't look a day older, mate.
Well, the key is, first of all, you find a painter, and you get him to make your picture, and then you put it up in the attic.
You have to have an attic, right?
That's the key. Yeah,
you gotta have an attic. So, I said in the intro, and we've talked about this before, that you were off the charts ADD, and I think that our society has become more sort of culturally ADD. We've got more and more and more distractions, and I think that time management becomes I don't think it's a pretty subject. I think it's a subject that's not particularly sexy. I've talked about it with some other people as well. It's not something people want to go, oh, yeah, I'm excited about that. But it seems like it's so necessary. And there are some really great people out there speaking about time management. What is it about what you do that's different, that makes you different from other time management people out there, and what it is you offer that's different? Let's get into that a little bit first.
Well, okay. First off, let me say, yes, I agree that time management is probably not a sexy subject. Yet, if you talk to the majority of executives, you say, what's the one thing you want that you don't have right now? And they'll tell you more time.
Right.
So it's right at the pulse of what people want. Now, the difference between me and everybody else is because, well, as you mentioned, I'm inherently disorganized. I talk about there are 3 groups, productivity groups. There's I call on one side we have the focus master. These are the people who are inherently organized, never had an issue with it. Then we have the nomads, the people who have gone off track from that focus master-like existence. And then there are the chaos masters.
Right.
And these are the people who are inherently disorganized and have, it's not that they're not successful, it's just that they've learned how to be successful in spite of that.
Spite, yes.
And I am firmly in the chaos master category. Now, I have a nice organized office now, but 10 years ago, it was a disaster.
Right.
And so when I speak about these things, I'm coming from the standpoint of somebody who, first of all, gets it. When you listen to most time management experts, these are guys and gals who've never struggled with this.
Right.
They're trying to teach the rest of us schlubs how to actually be like them. And it doesn't work because often it's too complex.
Right.
Also, being an entrepreneur, that piles on to how incredibly disorganized and busy I am. So I come from the standpoint of it's got to be simple, it's got to be fast, and it's got to be customizable. If it's not simple, fast, and customizable, you're not going to do it because you've got too much going on and it's not going to match your world. So that's how I present things, and I think that's why I come from a different place.
Yeah, and what you're saying there, I think, is very true. And that I remember knowing somebody who was super organized and super, time management. And they say, I wish I was more like you. I really wish I was more like you.
Yeah.
But for them, it was so easy. And then I remember this person trying to explain it to me. It was like, but it feels complex. And so it's a really great point. It's a really great point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows more about golf, Tiger Woods or Tiger Woods' golfing coach? I would argue, and granted, Tiger Woods isn't the top of his game right now, but the point is this. It's not how much you know, it's your ability to teach it to others.
Yeah.
And that is my gift.
Yeah.
That's what I can do, is I can take something that's very complex and teach it to others in a simplified way that they'll actually do something about it.
Yeah. I don't think, I see this. I don't want somebody teaching somebody I know how to lose weight who's never been overweight, who never has understood that problem, and they just look at you, well, just eat properly and exercise.
Right.
It's that.
It's
same
so
thing.
easy.
Yeah, it's so easy. I eat burgers and I'm fine. I eat fries and I'm fine. Well, you don't get it. So I think it's a really important point to learn time management from somebody who is naturally not that way.
Right.
I think it's really interesting. But, I said this at the beginning, that I think our society has set us up to be distracted. It's set us up with this idea of multitasking. And like it says right behind your head, the myth of multitasking. I mean, you wrote that book, The Myth of Multitasking. You come along, you tell people this is not saving you time. You did a wonderful demonstration the very first time I met you when you were speaking on stage at Sang, and you clearly demonstrated that multitasking is a waste of time. Why? Tell others, why is it a waste of time?
Sure. The basic answer is because your brain won't let it happen. Your brain is only able to handle multiple active tasks at the same time. Now, the key word is active tasks. You can have something in the background happening. I call that background tasking, where you delegate something to someone else. That's not what most people refer to, though, when they say multitasking. When they talk about multitasking, they're talking about having an interview like this while checking my email, or going to a conference call while I'm trying to fill out a report. It doesn't work because what's happening is your brain is switching rapidly back and forth between these things. So when you switch back and forth, you're incurring switching cost. Now, the problem is people do that all the time. Just like you said, our society has become a culture of multitasking, which means that even though most people listening to this don't have the genetic anomaly of ADD, they're still behaving as if they did.
Exactly. They're
still switching back and forth, and they've conditioned themselves to do this, and this is a learned behavior. And so because it's a learned behavior, it can be unlearned.
So, we're not talking about kids here, and we're not talking about even high school people. We're talking about, because I meet these people all the time, adults who go, I think I may be ADD. Mm-hmm. Do you think they are? Do you think it really is? I'm not talking about that there's not any, but do you think that a lot of people are claiming ADD, but actually what they are is environmentally overstimulated?
The majority absolutely are in, I call it short attention span syndrome. They've conditioned themselves to that. Statistically speaking, at most, we're talking about 8% of the population.
Right.
And that's a high, high estimate.
Right.
Now, if someone is in, let's say, a position where they created their own business, statistically speaking, and this is based on a study out of the University of Stockholm, they're going to be more likely as a group, so up to like 12% as a group, to have it. But that's still, that's a small fraction of everybody else.
Right.
So most people, when they come to me and they say I'm ADD, my first reaction is, I'm thinking probably not.
Right.
But let's go through the process of changing your behavior, of going through my time management course, which effectively is a method of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
I'm not a licensed psychologist, but I understand the philosophy. And basically what we're doing is we're repatterning behavior in people so that when they get the stimulus, they're reacting in a different way. They're not instantly jumping whenever the email beeps at them, but instead they're focused on what they're doing. And that takes conditioning and repetition to get to that point.
But that's something, again, I mean, look, instant gratification. We talk about overstimulation, but also instant gratification. I call myself out on this. I caught myself earlier this year. I was chatting with a friend of mine who's one of my mentors that I work with, and we're talking about what I had to do. And I always, like any small business person, I've always got multiple hats. I got lots of things to do and lots of things I could do. And he said, how much time are you spending on social media? And I know you talk about that. So how much time are you spending on social media? And I said, I don't know. And he said, I think you're spending too much time. I said, that's a fair comment. It's entirely possible. So I tracked it for a week. I actually had my phone in front of me, and I would just hit the timer. And then I'd write it down, whatever it was. Right? So the timer's running. I forgot about it. I go, shit, okay, it's 10 minutes. I write that down, whatever it was. Yeah. And it was quite shocking of how much time I was spending there. And we started discussing this, and because I understand the psychology of people, including myself, I went, what is the pull? Is it the stimulus? Is it the distraction? Is it this new, information every, as I scroll down every 3 to 1 second? What is it? And one of the things I find about this distracted world is there's a lot of instant gratification in that process. What I mean is, if you go on Facebook or whatever it is, and you're looking for likes, that's like a little round of applause, particularly for those of us who are speakers, right? So it's this little round of, right? So I post this post, and it's got 30 comments, and it's got 100 likes. It's like, oh, it's like I'm standing on the stage for a second.
Good job, Doug.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I don't need to go to work. I'll just sit here all day and get likes. But I've found that when I go to the bank and I say, but I've got 10,000 Facebook likes, they don't want to give me any money. And I can't buy any air tickets. It's so disappointing.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There is a psychological reason behind it. It's called variable response reward. And there have been studies that show that it's akin to compulsive gambling. Yep. Why do people sit there for long periods of time, for instance, on a slot machine and keep pulling the lever and pulling the lever? It's because of the hope and the chance of payoff.
Yeah.
And what you just described right there is the same thing. We're paying slots, but we're playing it with our emotions.
You got it.
And we're hoping that we're going to get that payoff. And the fact that we don't always get the payoff is what makes it more attractive.
Of course.
It's when we get it, then we win, and we're excited, and we do it more and more. And so now not only do we have the time suck that comes from this, all the switching back and forth, but we also have the emotional drain that comes from this as well, which is significant, especially when you're leading people and you have to be an example and you've got to be up for talking to people. If you're allowing yourself to get jerked around by how many likes you got, boy, you're in a tough spot.
Yeah. Well, I think that like you said, so many distractions, so many things, all those things, and the need for that emotional hit. And and you and I both know this, that there's a part of your brain designed to enjoy that kind of stuff. It wants that,
right?
And we'll even set up an addictive process to pull you in. I mean, it's quite compelling, and for some people, it's almost like a withdrawal to stop doing those things. But all this stuff costs. Let's talk about entrepreneurs here, but it costs a lot. And people, I don't think that people sit in front of the screen and go, Facebook is free. And I would argue that it's not, meaning that there's a cost. Tell us how much money is going down the drain because of this kind of stuff, because of this multitasking, switching tasks, distracted behavior, all those kind of things. You know, you've done your research. Tell us how tell us about that.
I'll keep it really simple. This is based on my field research, and also it's backed up by a study by a group called Basics Research. 1/4. That's it. 1/4. It's an easy way to think about it. In other words, if you're working, let's say 40 hours a week, which is conservative, that means that 1 week, one 40-hour chunk of period out of every month is trash. It's just wasted. And the wasted time is not necessarily in spending time on Facebook. That has an additional cost. Or spending time on YouTube watching videos of cats laughing, okay? It is just the switching cost, the transition between if I'm typing an email, someone interrupts me, I answer the question, I go back to the email. That transition time of me getting back to the email, 1/4 of all time. If you have employees, 1/4 of what you're paying them, 1/4 of your labor expense is garbage.
Right.
You're not getting anything from it. And it's not necessarily their fault. It's because of the environment and the choices that they're making to be distracted lots of times. And often, who is causing the biggest distraction to the employees? The leader.
The leader. Yeah.
Right? You're coming in and saying, I'm sorry, I got just a quick question.
Right.
Right? And you're conditioning to do that. And they're conditioning you to be a human vending machine. They come in, I got a quick question. So you're answering all the questions for them. Switch, 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 switch. When instead, we want to empower the employees so that they're answering their own questions. And if we have questions that we need to discuss, we're waiting. We're queuing them all up, putting them on a list. Like if you and I work together, I have a 1-to-1 Dove list. And then every Thursday at 1 o'clock or whatever, you and I meet and we exchange the quick questions with each other.
Right.
It'll dramatically reduce the number of switches that are taking place.
I think you're right. But I think that it's become, I mean, I don't know if stuff like that was socially acceptable before. You know what I mean? I don't know if in the workplace that our parents worked in, that you could interrupt the boss, or the boss could interrupt you, or your coworker could interrupt you, and I think that's a good thing that we've gone a different way, but maybe we've polarized, and that's never a good thing, because people were locked in offices, head down, and you had to do your work, and you were a freaking machine, and you probably were going to die of just boredom, just because you're a robot. Now we've seemed to have gone the other way, and I'm definitely around flattening hierarchy and helping people to manage themselves and all the rest of it, and have a lot more sort of communication and all those things. But it may have gone to the other side into what you're saying. Right,
the open workspace. I was speaking to a group of leaders the other day, and someone asked that. They're like, what do you think about this new open workspace that everybody's doing? And I said, personally, I hate it. I think it's the worst invention ever. Because what's happening is you're creating a situation where everybody is open to interrupt each other at any time.
Right.
This isn't a matter of respect or disrespect. This is about focus.
Right.
And that's also part of what I'm teaching now is, time management as a practice is, I still use it because that's the term that everybody knows, but really it's dead. Our challenge in our day is focus management. And
I agree.
And so, for instance, what I suggest instead is rather than having an open door policy, have a closed door open calendar policy. So you're still saying, hey, I'm open to talk to you. But when we talk, let's do it in a focused way. Let's sit down and not have any other thing going on. And I know that I have this time where Dove and I are going to talk, and I'm going to give you my full attention, rather than you feeling like you have to or can interrupt me at any time of the day, regardless of what I'm working on, or even regardless of what you're working on. It's not productive and it's not helpful. It doesn't build relationships. It actually damages relationships.
I personally like that open space thing because I like the part of how it builds a culture, and I love that about it. But I love what you just said there, which is an open calendar policy. I think that's a very interesting thing, because then it says you can come and talk to me anytime that is open in the calendar.
There you go.
As opposed to wandering in on a whim. And I agree with you. I think the downside of that is that it also sets permission for you to not frickin' think for yourself. If you've got an open door policy and it's all sort of meandering, then instead of actually having the discipline to sit there for a minute and go, well, let me see if I can fix it or work this out myself. No, I'll go talk to Dave. I'll go talk to Dov. I'll go talk to Betty. I'll talk to Susan, whoever it is, as opposed to, hold on, stop. Like, so I think, like I said, I love the open space, but in there needs to be a cultural sort of pounding of, you can go talk to anybody, open calendar, but you have to stop first and really see if you can work it out, because it's not saving time, based specifically on what you're saying, because the people will come back, well, it just saves time. I go to Dave, he knows what to do. But it doesn't save time because it steals Dave's time.
Right, and everyone involved pays switching cost.
Right.
It. And look, if you're in an open environment, because I get the benefit of culture, that just means that you're going to have to come up with ways to create boundaries.
Yes, absolutely.
For instance, putting on headphones, or, gosh, I know a guy who literally would put on a sombrero when he'd say, "This is my focus time." Okay, so people knew if you have the sombrero, leave him alone.
Right.
Okay, so
the
you can do
sombrero
things
of silence
like
instead of the cone of silence.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Maybe we can brand that, Dave. Here's
yeah,
a
there
new
you
shiny
go.
object for you and I to go into business with. We're
Yeah,
going to develop the sombrero of silence.
Yeah. So you can create the boundaries. You can even, if we work from a home office like I do, I worked with a guy and he was having a hard time hearing people. He used white noise. He put a fan in his office so that he wasn't hearing his kids scurrying around the house. The key is manage your focus. Protect your focus, because that is what's going to help you be successful.
Right. So it's exactly that. Time management in the way that you're talking about is actually training people how to focus on one thing at a time.
The most important thing, the most valuable thing.
Right. So help us out. And I'm sure you go into this in great details in your courses. And again, I want to remind people that you can find Dave on lynda.com and you can look at his courses, and then we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But help people out. Let's just sort of go a bit practical for a minute. Give us a tip. How do people get more focused? Because, you said focusing on what's most important. How do they sort that out? Because especially entrepreneurs, small business people, there is 18 things to do, and it feels like 12 of them are like vitally important now.
Yeah.
How do you sort out what's the most important?
So I had this conversation recently with a client of mine, and he's probably the highest value per hour person I've ever worked with. I mean, he's doing stuff that literally I cannot talk about due to national security. Right. He makes about $3,000 per hour, and he told me, "Dave, how do I prioritize my time?" And I said, "Okay, first of all, let's give some context. What have we all been taught since 1980? We've been taught urgent and important, right?" Yeah. And I was a big fan of that. Covey was in my backyard. He inspired me to do much of what I'm doing now. I'm not saying that it wasn't great then, but the problem is it's become outdated.
Yes.
Why has it become outdated? Because everything is now urgent.
Yeah.
Everything is urgent in our society. And most of it is important. This is not a question of good versus bad. This is a question of better versus the best. Right? So, I'm going to outline a simple chart that I gave him for prioritization for this $3,000 an hour person. First of all, number one, make sure that you're up to date with processing. Now, processing it's certainly not a sexy subject to talk about in an interview like this, but I go into it in great depth in my time management fundamentals course on Lynda. The idea, though, is you're going through your email, you're bringing your inbox to zero. You must stay on top of that. If you are not on top of that, then you are overcommitted. And if you're overcommitted, you're going to go into time debt. So that's first, is to stay on top of that. And that sounds
let's make sure I understand this, because I want to show that everybody who's
Please.
watching, listening, gets it.
Yeah.
So work out what are my processes? Is that what you're saying first?
No. What I mean is process through my email. So, for instance, in my email inbox right now, to start this interview, I have 30 unanswered emails.
Right.
I need to bring that to 0 at least once per week.
Okay.
I need to stay on top of that. And even if I'm worth $3,000 per hour, it's worth it to spend the time doing that. And this is a counterintuitive thing that a lot of people fight against initially. They go, I feel like I'm just wasting my time sitting here answering my email or going through my paperwork. Here's why. If you're consistent with it, you're only going to spend 4 to 5 hours a week doing it.
Right.
If you do it in a focused way. If you're inconsistent with it, you're going to spend 10 to 15 hours a week doing it. Why? Because what you're doing is you're doing it here and there and everywhere.
Right.
Answer an email here, answer an email here, talk, have conversation, jump back and forth, pay all that switching cost.
Right.
Instead, what I'm saying is have a consistent, scheduled time to do it.
Huh.
For me, Monday and Friday, consistently. I bring it to 0 to end the week, and I bring it to 0 to start the week. And that is very powerful because it gives me more time. It actually frees up more time. Okay?
So make sure.
So that's one.
One, yeah, okay.
Okay, number 2. Is there something repetitive that I'm doing that I should delegate to someone else?
Let's write that down. That's important. Repetitive to delegate. Okay.
Regardless of what it is, regardless of how valuable it is, if you're doing something over and over and over, that means there can be a system created for it. And if there can be a system created for it, you can teach it to someone else. And if you teach it to someone else, you just earned time.
So as an entrepreneur, give us an example of something that might fall into that category.
Gosh, I'll do right now scheduling.
Yeah.
Okay. I used to do all my own scheduling. Switch. Can you meet at this time? Oh my gosh, what a waste of time. So I delegated that to my awesome assistant, Faye. Right. She takes care of that for me. Responding to social media, as an author, right? I've got people who are commenting. There are some things that I need to reply to directly, but a lot of it just like, hey, thanks for saying this or whatever. That can be delegated to someone else. Just even parts of it. Even like, for instance, if you have to create a report, but there's a lot of research involved, delegate the research portion of it and say, give me the top 3 bullet points. And then after they've done the research, then you can complete the actual writing yourself. So get as much of it off your plate that you can. And that will free up mounds of time. So
with using the examples you've got, tell me why you think we hoard, because I see this all the time. And I've been guilty of it. I'm not saying that I'm over it, but we hoard. So I'm writing this. I need to do the research because I'm the only one who would really understand what I'm really looking for, as an example. Or we tend to. I find that people are very clingy. They hoard their, quote, chaos. They hoard their overwhelm.
Yeah, 2 reasons. One is pride, and the other one is being too nice. First, the pride. The one is the feeling that only I can do it. I am the best. Here's what I would say. What makes everyone listening to this the best is the finishing touch that they put on everything.
Right.
It is not all of the grunt work that got to that point. It is the added element of perfection or the polishing. I'll give you a great example of that. Again, not everybody here is an author or writer, but I think you'll be able to compare this.
Yeah.
So on my site, I put out a video every single week, and we send out an email every single week. I realized I was repeating the process of creating these things, and it was really a template. So I delegated the writing of the email to someone else.
Right.
I found somebody who writes in my style, and so she does 2 hours of work on it each week and then sends it to me. And then I become the editor-in-chief. Right. And so rather than spending, an hour or 2 hours on it, I spend 10 minutes on it.
Right.
Give it my flavor, give it my touch, and I'm done.
It's interesting. I have a friend, again, best-selling author, and I met him 8-9 years ago. When I met him, he said, "Oh, I wrote a book," and I said, "Go send it to me. I'll have a look." So I had a look at it, and I got to tell you, It wasn't
Not so great.
It wasn't great.
Okay.
He's a great guy, but the book was not so great because he's not worked on his writing skills. That's all it is. Because I don't believe there's good. I think there's some people who are naturally very good, but I think anybody can become a good writer if you find your voice. But it was clunky because he was trying to write. And I think that's always a problem. Anyway, so he put this book out and it didn't do very well. And I pushed him and I said, listen, you gotta find what's called a developmental editor. And he's like, what's that? And I said, it's somebody who will take your ideas and sort of grow them for you, but will use your voice. I had a conversation, and I know he went away and did some stuff, but I had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, now he's a big guy. Like, he's huge, much bigger than I am in his world. He's huge. And he said, I said, how's the writing going? And he said, I got to tell you, I was at this party in L.A., and he's like talking about all these famous people that you and I would know. You know, it was like, it's a sang party. You know, it's all the top people are there. Mm-hmm. And he's talking to this person, and this person says to him, how's it going? And he says, yeah, I've been working with his writing. He says, yeah, I've been working with this developmental editor on my last 2 books. It's been so much better, blah, blah, blah. But now I've got this big New York publishing house who wants me to publish. And he said, oh, that's great. And he said, but they want me to use a ghostwriter. And he said, oh, I just don't think that's right. And the person he's talking to is a 5-time New York Times bestseller who says to him, you're an author, man. You don't have time to write. And I thought that was a great line, because here's something that he wasn't brilliant at. But he can talk. He's great on stage. He could sit with a ghostwriter and do a series of interviews over the phone or over Skype or whatever it was. That person will take exactly what he said. It's still all his ideas. Put it all together, and guess what he has to do? Exactly what Dave was just recommending here, which is go in, read it, put the finishing touch on. Is it still his? Because a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm guilty because I didn't write it. You did write it. You just didn't use a writing instrument, whether that's a pen or a keyboard. You wrote by letting it flow out of your mouth, and that's, for me, is a great example of what you're talking about. Does that make sense for you?
Well, yeah, and that's part of what I teach about when I tell people to focus on their most valuable position. Your most valuable position are the 1 or 2 things that you do in the company that are the most costly and difficult to replace. You know, you can't delegate those things to anyone else without paying lots and lots of money.
Well, you can't delegate people to do your videos.
Yeah, exactly. That's my most valuable position, is getting up in front of people and doing it. But everything else is a least valuable position. Right. I can delegate the editing, I can delegate the graphic design, I can delegate the writing, I can delegate the production. I have a kid come in, he sits in the room, he watches the camera, he takes care of all that stuff. So all I have to do is stand up and talk. And this same principle applies whether you're an architect or you're a sales executive. You should not, if you're a sales executive, you should not be doing the post-call paperwork.
No.
You stink at it. Don't do it. Let someone else do that who's good at it, and you focus on the relationships that you're building and helping people get the service that they need. That's what I'm talking about with the most valuable position.
So would you say that that's one of the vital pieces of quote time management is focus, but beyond focus, it's focusing on your highest value of your time?
There you go. Focus on what's most valuable. I mean, and this is something I hint on with the focus business. Chaos versus focus. The difference is very subtle. Chaos is the haphazard allocation of resources to things of variable value. Focus is the strategic allocation of resources to only that which is of most value.
Okay, say it again, because I want people to stop and write that down. Pay attention to that. You know, you might have got distracted. So say it again, because what Dave just shared with you there, I think is golden. Give it again.
Okay, I'm gonna say it even cleaner.
Okay.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Haphazard allocation of time to variable value. And let me explain what I mean. By haphazard, you're doing lots of stuff. It's a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
Of variable value. Some of it is good, some of it isn't good. Okay? Mm-hmm. Focus is the strategic allocation to things of most value. So when you work, you make a conscious, strategic choice about it, and it's only on things that are of most value. Nothing else. You don't touch anything else unless it is of most value.
Okay, so
that is the difference.
And I think that's important, and everybody needs to write it down. So I'm now going to be the small business person and come back to you and say, okay, this is wonderful, Dave. It makes perfect sense. I can't afford to hire all that staff.
No, you can't. But what you can do is you can start to chip away at it. You can also, some of what you're doing, you're spending too much time doing because you're using ineffective or poor or outdated tools. A 2% slowdown on your computer. If your computer, because it's outdated, because you haven't upgraded it in 4 years, you don't have enough memory, let's say it just slows you down 2%. You know what that costs you every year? 1 work week.
Wow.
And so often I see people who are stingy with their investment in their tools. I mean, I worked with a business owner once who got a crappy 3-hole puncher. You know, he saved $20, but it was costing him $200 every month in his lost productivity. And
how do you measure that? Because that's, like, for me, that's fascinating. I think that's great.
Yeah.
You know, your 3-hole punch is costing you $200 a month.
Yeah.
How do you work that out?
Okay, well, I explain how to value your time in the course. So I'm not going to take the time to do that.
No,
but basically,
that's the point, right?
We did the math to find out. We did the math to find out that he was worth $300 per hour.
Right.
When he was doing his most valuable activities, worth $300 per hour. So I watched this guy with his cheap 3-hole puncher do a bad job with it, got frustrated, went out of the office, went into his accountant's office who had a nice $120 3-hole puncher, clean punch. Right. And then he walked back. And I said, Mr. Business Owner, how many times per month or week do you do that? And he said, I don't know, once or twice. I said, okay, so that took you about an extra 5 to 10 minutes by doing that. You realize that because you were cheap when you went to Office Depot and bought that thing and didn't buy the high-quality one, you're costing yourself in the neighborhood of $200 to $300 every single month.
See, I think that's one of the things. That's why I went back on it, because I think it's one of the things that we don't think about. There's these little, it's no big deal. And I agree with you. I think that you've got to invest in the right equipment. You've got to invest in the right systems. But you got to invest in yourself too, and that's another big piece that I think that people don't invest in. You know, and as you said, you know, here's somebody else in the office. Just as an example, I'll let them have the best equipment, but I'll put up with this piece of crap, and then suck my time out. And I think it's fascinating because you talk about in your Linda course about a bank of time, and I love this idea. It's very simple, but I love it. And so with a bank of time. You talk about putting money into that bank, or putting time into that bank, and taking time out of that bank. But you also talk about something called borrowed time. And is there interest on borrowed time? And if it is it compounded?
Yeah. Well, I think the first question is, can you borrow time?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, but you only borrow it from yourself, from a necessary activity to pay something else. So, for instance, I borrow from sleep to pay Netflix. In that scenario, right? Good. Okay, yeah. I watch a little extra House of Cards. Right. It's just an hour of sleep. Now, what did that 1 hour cost me? The next day. Yeah. I have to repay it with interest, just like I have to pay money with interest. So I'm going to lose productivity as a result, and eventually I'm going to have to make up that hour anyway. So an hour plus another hour, and that's the thing about time. Is it demands a brutal interest rate. If I borrow from a date with my wife to pay work, you can't tell me I'm not going to have to repay that with interest over a long period of time, right?
Yes,
if I had just gone on the date, yes, if I had just gone on the date, I would have been in balance. Yeah. But if I didn't, then I'm going to have to make up for it. I'm going to have to do other things. It's going to cost me 2 or 3 times. And people are debt spending constantly when it comes to their time. Yeah. And the biggest reason why they do it is because they're not using a calendar. It's so simple. Yeah. It's so simple. And I say it, and it sounds like, man, how can I make money saying this to people? But the reality is most people are not properly using a calendar. And they're spending time as if it were on a credit card. Yeah. Oh, I'll get to that in 5 minutes.
Right.
I'll get to that tomorrow. I just swiped the card.
Right.
but I don't know whether or not I can actually pay for it because I didn't pull out my calendar, didn't pull out my checkbook, and look to see if I actually had room in there to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
Another great guest that we had on here was, we were talking about some time management stuff. Kevin Cruz is a great guy. You probably know him. And one of the things that he was talking about, and I know you talk about it, is the problem with to-do lists and how they just suck your time away. And I, in the conversation him and I had, when I started out, I really felt like I felt like I was bad at time management, and I fully owned that. But after we went through it, I went, damn, I'm good at time management. I actually realized, and one of the main reasons is the very thing you just said, is I don't do a to-do list. I put things in my calendar. And so when people come, I mean, they'll walk in my office, and because I have my calendar open, it's on the screen, and they'll go, oh my God, you're a busy guy. And I go, yep, I am. I think, well, what are all these blocks? It's everything. It's everything. It's a 15-minute call with Dave. We're just having a bit of a chat. About what? Find out if I can help him, find out if he can help me. That's all it is. As opposed to trying to find that 15 minutes, which now was something else I was supposed to do. And help people grasp. Let's say they get to that. They've done the calendar. And I think you've already answered it, but I just want to make sure it goes home. They got the calendar. They oh yeah, okay, I'll get that. Now I'm going to put things in the calendar. How do you get them to stay with the calendar?
How do you get them to follow the calendar that they've set?
This is the calendar. I'm supposed to do emails at 10 o'clock Monday morning till 10:30. But, you know, this happened, that happened.
Okay, so there are a lot of things going on there, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to focus on the one that I think is the most common, which is people are looking at the whole thing, and they're paying attention to their emotion at the wrong time. Now, what do I mean by that is when you schedule something on the calendar, most of us feel good, right? We're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do that. That's going to be great. And at the end of doing it, we feel good. Man, I worked hard on that. I accomplished that. Just before doing it, what do we feel like? We feel miserable.
Miserable, right.
Oh, this is going to be so hard. I don't want to work on this. This is a pain. At that moment, ignore how you feel.
Okay.
Because your brain is not doing you a favor. The brain is hardwired to resist change. And the reason why you're thinking all that is because it's trying to fight change. Right. So number one, ignore the emotion. Number two, don't schedule the whole activity. Only schedule the first minute of activity. The first minute of activity is, simplest example, I worked with a guy who's a sales rep, and he hated to make the calls, the cold calls, because even in a position he had to make cold calls. I said, okay, you're scheduling on your calendar, make cold calls. That doesn't look fun to anybody. That's way too hard. What's the first minute of activity? Well, I pull up the list. Schedule that.
Right.
Schedule pulling up the list. So then when he looks at it, he goes, oh, can I pull up the list? Oh, yeah, that's not hard. He pulls up the list. Next thing he knows, he's doing it.
Right.
So I call that precrastination. It's where we're focusing on just the first minute and ignoring the rest of the work. It gets us into the process, and then we'll just flow along with it.
That's very good. That precrastination, I like that. It's a simple piece anybody can grasp. I understand that you're very generously you're offering a free full time management course. Is that right?
Yeah. So my course that we mentioned a couple of times, Time Management Fundamentals. It's one of the most popular courses on lynda.com, lynda.com. Lynda, if you're not aware, was just purchased by LinkedIn for $1.5 billion.
And you got 20% of that, right?
Oh yeah.
That's why
beautiful.
You're doing this.
Beautiful. No, so if you're not familiar with it, here's how I describe it. I don't know if they agree with it. It's the Netflix of learning. You pay $25 a month, you get all you can eat access. They've got over 4,000 courses. So here's the deal. If you go to davecrenshaw.com/free time. Okay. Free time, and that will get you a free trial to lynda.com.
Oh, wow.
And in the free trial, you can go, I've got about 14 courses on there, but go through Time Management Fundamentals first.
Okay.
And you'll be able to go through the whole course within that free trial. And if you don't want to continue, you can cancel. I do recommend that people keep it. I tell my clients, I mean, I have clients that I coach, the business owner, and many of them get Lynda for their employees because it's, I mean, $25 a month for an employee to get training when you compare the labor cost. But go to that davecrenshaw.com/free time, get free access to time management fundamentals, and you'll get the full Monty of what it is that I've been sharing here.
One of my things is I believe that there are things that are really obvious to you, Dave, who you are, just by virtue of who you are and by virtue of what you've done in your life. There are things that are really clearly obvious to you that are completely, other people are completely oblivious and blind to. And I call these invisible factors. And I think we all have a mastery of those in a specific area. But we're also tend to be blind in other areas. What would you say is the invisible factor of success from what it is that you share? So meaning you can see that highly successful people consistently do this, and what people,
and they're not aware of it.
They're not even aware of it. But what's more is other people are completely, they just don't even know it. It's an invisible factor.
This is going to sound so incredibly simple, and yet I see it violated and used for success every day.
Right.
Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. That's so simple.
It is.
Just do that.
Just do that.
You do that and you will succeed. It's, you know, if and I'll give you a very personal example. We just built this beautiful house. If everything ever went to hell in a handbasket with my career and I had to start all over again, you know what I would do? I'd be a general contractor. Because all I'd have to do is what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it. And the most successful ones do that.
Yeah.
And yet, what percent of general contractors do that?
Not
yeah. There are some, and they rock their business.
Yeah.
And everybody else is fighting.
Yeah.
You do that in whatever industry you've got, and you will succeed.
That's the invisible factor. Well, it's been great having you here. It's always great chatting with you. I hope you'll stay with us a little bit at the end so you and I can say goodbye. But it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Again, please give out that URL where people can go find out more about the free course and how to get a hold of you and whatever it is that they want to do.
Sure. Dave Crenshaw, and Crenshaw is CRENSHAW, davecrenshaw.com/free time.
Awesome. As I said, as we will make sure that Dave's link is posted on the page so you can go and check it out. We'll make sure you have all the info there about how to contact him, how to find out about this great course, and how to find out more about all of the courses that he has on lynda.com. We'll have all that for you. It's been awesome having Dave Crenshaw here. Give him a round of applause inside of your head, outside loud, whatever you need to do. And you know what? Make sure you listen back to this because you might have been distracted. Your email may have beeped. There was a million things that could have distracted you while you were listening, watching this. Go back, listen in, watch it again, turn everything else off, write the notes, get it, put it in action, as I say to you always. Because if you're truly serious about embracing the kind of positive disruption that builds a culture of fiercely loyal employees who not only lead but become evangelical about your organization while creating a 10x engagement and productivity, reach out to me at fullmontyleadership.com. Full Monty, like the movie, fullmontyleadership.com. Again, my name is Dov Barron. I'm the founder of Full Monty Leadership. I want to thank you for joining us here at Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty Leadership interview series. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Remember, as always, we need you to go to iTunes and help us stay relevant, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Until next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious.